everyone. Welcome back to Sit Fearlessly. Woo woo! We are so excited to be here today. Like all the mommies, shout out to you. Like I'm feeling all the energy in the air. I cannot wait to celebrate. And this is not only maternal moms. If you're an auntie mom, if you're a grandmama mom, if you're all of that, we are celebrating everyone who has been taking care of a loved one, who has been taking care of a child, who has been supportive and empowering and all of that good stuff. So I'm definitely feeling the vibes and the energy today. Yes. Okay. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Eris for putting together such a magnificent, interactive, creative, immersive space here at BronxNet on Saturday with their BU Fest. That was like super, super awesome. Like they totally transformed BronxNet. It looked like a whole different place. And BronxNet already looks beautiful, but it looked like a totally different place. And like, you know, you can take selfies everywhere, videos, connect with other people. And, you know, I was able to sit on a panel. We talked everything about podcasting. Yes. So we, of course, talked about Sit Fearlessly because it's one of the best podcasts in New York City. Hello.
Okay.
Yes. Shout out to all the panelists that were sitting with me. They were amazing. Our host, La Loca, she was awesome. Great energy. Love her. Can't wait to have her on. And yeah, so I just want to give a big shout out to Eris and with BU Fest and everybody who was involved in that project because it was super amazing.
Yes, it was.
And then I also got to coach a couple of new clients, which was really, really awesome because it was real time also. So that was pretty cool to do and just to, you know, be in a new space with new clients is always cool because you get to know their story, you get to know them, and you know they feel so empowered and so happy just to be working on themselves, on their businesses. So that was pretty awesome. So shout out to you guys.
And it was fun.
And it was fun.
Yes.
Yes. And shout out to Sis for coming through and supporting and, you know, taking all of the awesome footage that we have. And I cannot wait to share the conversation with you guys. So, yeah. But without further ado, we have an amazing guest here today.
As usual.
Yes, per usual, who I got to meet thanks to Storytime. Storyland, yes, yeah. My apologies, Storyland. So I got an opportunity to meet the amazing Shalome Israel at Storyland, and she was there debuting her new book and talking to all of the amazing kitties that were in the room. And, you know, shout out to Storyland as well, because that's such a beautiful space. That was such a beautiful gathering, and y'all know I'm all about the youth, so it was awesome, 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 awesome. So without further ado, Shalome Israel.
Yes.
Yes. A woman empowered. Yes. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I love this whole movement. Congratulations on launching your book, Zoom Zoom.
Thank you.
And we're just going to dive like into it. Just tell us a little bit of your background, and also what got you into being an author, and especially for the youth.
Sure, of course. I am an educator at heart. I feel like since very young, I've been like working with people, working with community. And when I came to New York City in 2003, I was like, okay, how am I going to survive in the city? I was like, bright lights, I'm going to go and dance and, you know, be the next Broadway star and that sort of thing. And my oldest brother was like, what's your backup plan? And I was like, and I was thinking, I don't need a backup plan, like, I'll be fine. But in any event, I was thinking, okay, how will I survive the city while I'm auditioning, doing this and that? I fell into teaching, doing dance. So I started teaching in Brooklyn, teaching dance, and it felt like the first time I was in the classroom, high school students. Not only do I love dance, it's my undergrad, but it felt like a calling. So I was like, okay, mixing dance with helping the community and working with children. From there, I continued to teach dance for several years. High school, middle school, I worked with Alvin Ailey for a little bit with their Arts and Ed program. But I just knew that teaching was something that I was like called to do. Fast forward, I was in the classroom and I had lots of students of different backgrounds and working in charter schools and in other schools. The classroom sizes were always, as most teachers know, overwhelming, quite large, and the learning, the demographic of learners is always going to be diverse. So as a dance teacher, I thought, I want to be able to empower and help all of my students, which is what compelled me to go back to school to figure out, okay, what am I missing as a general educator, as a dance teacher? I know it's dance, but I want to be able to help all of my students and empower them every time they come in so that when they go back to class, they can feel even more, empowered and amped up to learn. So I went back and I got my master's, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to focus on students with disabilities. And the younger I got, the more open my classroom became and the more fun that I had working with the kids. And that's just a personal preference. But I went back to school, got my master's in education and students with disabilities, birth to grade 2. And from there, it felt like every day going into the classroom, I continued to learn, I continued to grow. And since I was no longer teaching dance, my classroom was still rhythmic. It was still, I still incorporated music and movement to help the babies, break up the learning and that sort of thing. And the students kind of inspired me and encouraged me to go into how can I put this down on paper in a way that can be immortalized, but also poetic and also picturesque. And in grad school, there's a specific assignment that we have to do where we do have to create a book. And I was like, I think I want to do this. And my professor kept that book, and I was like, I want to keep this book. But they kept it. But it really inspired me to figure out how I can take the stories in my classroom and my experience growing as an educator and continuing to learn and put it into something that kind of was a reflection of my journey, but also might be used as a tool for my fellow colleagues and now my fellow service providers and special education teachers.
What a great story. What a great story, how you fell into alignment. That's how amazing the universe works. Sometimes you don't even know what exactly you're going to end up doing, but it just finds you on the path.
Exactly.
So that is so amazing. And your energy is really awesome. So you're great for the kids. I know the kids love you because I saw you in action. It's everything. So congratulations on all of that. Wow.
You.
And surviving New York.
Yeah, right. I'm still here.
Right. So tell us about the creation of AlphaKey Club.
Yeah.
What was the vision behind blending movement, art, and literacy, which you shared a little bit, but tell us about the creation of AlphaKey Club.
Right. AlphaKey Club, working as a creative educator doesn't always garner the respect that the work kind of is a reflection of the work. And I kind of got tired of always being at the bottom of the list. And when I got my master's or actually before I got my master's, I was thinking, in one of the schools I worked in, I was required to do literacy with kindergarten students. And my mind was just blown. First of all, with the attraction I had to that topic and watching between 4 and 5, watching them acquire the ability to read and take in language and interpret and process the language. That experience, watching a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old acquire that information is mind-blowing for me. So I was very impressed with their ability to do that. And I realized that if it's put to melody, if there's rhythm, if there's pictures, it becomes a whole different ball game. And again, it's more accessible for all the learners. And a lot of times people think of neurodivergent children as a specific curriculum or a specific tool or thing that you would use for them. It's for the whole class. All of the students benefit. So as a dance teacher, I was like, oh, I had to do this learning session with these kindergartners. And I was thinking, how can I kind of marry the two? And I've always been doing visual art. My mother was a visual artist. And so for me, it takes something like literacy that sometimes can be such a turnoff for students or be a turning point for them when they struggle. And they'll shut down, and from that point, no matter how young, literacy will be looked at as something that's difficult and something. So trying to repurpose or what's called rebrand that idea of them learning how to read coupled with movement and with music. And I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I just figured I wanted to try to marry the two and put it into a package that was easily able to swallow and that I could take around to different organizations, which I did. I was able to go as far as Dominican Republic, and we were talking about Dominican Republic earlier. I worked with Dream Project, which is, their headquarters are in New York, but they work in a Montessori school in Cabarete on the north coast of DR. So I've been able to go as far as Dominican Republic and Long Island and Queens and foster care shelters, family shelters, Children's Museum of Manhattan, and it's just a unique alphabet. AlphaKey has an alphabet, and instead of doing a traditional like A for apple, B for bat, C for cat, that sort of thing, I'm teaching them more social emotional concepts that most adults are like, they don't know, they can't do that. That's too advanced, and I'm like, but is it? Like they're doing it anyway. They're experiencing what it means to achieve, what it means to be bold, what it means to care and have confidence, what it means to have dignity. They're doing all those things, they just don't have the language.
Right.
So I applied the AlphaKey alphabet, which has all of those more social, emotional, layered concepts, and then they get to write, they get to move, they get to draw, and depending on the level, because I've done this with corporations and young students, and I've done it with like babies and moms, where they're just creating something around the idea, the concept, and it just starts with, what's your favorite letter? And then they choose a letter, and then we talk about the letter, or a school or an organization will choose, we really want to infuse integrity today, or it's one of our core, goals, or part of our mission statement, so we'll center it around that, and they always understand because they're living it every day in their classrooms. So long story short, it was the idea of bringing literacy in something that sometimes will shut children off, because statistically, if students aren't reading at a specific grade level, it begins to and it's not that they can't, it's that their confidence and their ability and energy to succeed starts to decline rapidly. So kind of like making sure that I was covering that while also getting them to be creative, and I had a professor that said in order for children to be successful, they have to feel successful. So they don't have to necessarily be out here, winning Olympics and gold medals. They just have to feel like they've won. And that's kind of what AlphaKey Club was.
I love this so much.
Me too.
And I love that you have the focus on children with special needs, because it is very challenging in schools a lot of times for teachers to be able to, manage kids, with what do they call it?
Under the spectrum?
Yeah, under the spectrum. And IEPs, I think they call it.
IEPs.
IEPs, they have IEPs and things like that. So the fact that your program is being welcomed so well in this city and abroad, I think is really awesome, because we need that. We need that. So the more you're able to expand your reach and the more you're able to train and teach others, I think this is going to be really, really, really great. Yeah, because we need that. That's so important. So thank you for that. I love it. And the way you explain it too, it's so, it's information we don't have, and it also feels like it's coming from a place of so much comfort, that you're giving to the children.
Because she has a gift.
Yes, exactly.
How do you get their attention?
Yes. Yes, she has a toddler, so she's But what has been the most meaningful moment or impact that you've witnessed so far?
Oh my goodness, so many. One that immediately pops up, because again, when people see the AlphaKey logo and they see the target age group, which is technically under second grade, so we're talking about under 8 years old, they're immediately like, oh, that's for the young kids, that's for preschoolers. However, I always make sure that I lead with the message is the same to adulthood, and I remind myself with my AlphaKey alphabet how to achieve and how to have dignity and how to have patience and how to make sure that I question things that I don't understand. So I went to Miami and I worked with, I think it was called Miami Bridge, organization that housed students who were aging out of foster care. So they were actually like high school and about to be no longer minors, and I'm using the wrong terminology, but they were a bit older. And I arranged ahead of time because I was in Miami for something else, and I arranged ahead of time to go do a visit with them. And the children, the students were living in the facility, so I was coming into their home technically. And I remember after I did the whole thing, the organizers were saying, like, we haven't had them be that attentive to something in so long. And I took the exact same thing, but the conversation is slightly more mature. The language I use might be slightly more mature. And of course, they're contributing a lot more. And we did, we might have done like Achieve, and I had them do vision boards instead of, you know, like drawing.
Right.
You know, they want to go to school or have their snack or make a new friend or something. These students were envisioning what their futures would look like. And I also had them target, you know, typical like short term and long term. And I made sure that they were aware it's not like, I want to graduate from Harvard. Like, what do you want to do right now? What is something that you want to accomplish and something that you feel strongly about that's just outside of your reach that you can put down and look at? It was so much fun, and I received so much from them, and I felt so empowered to like share with them. And I think that's what the organizers and what the caregivers were witnessing was that there was like this exchange. And I remember on my Instagram, I went back and looked at the video, and I was like hype in that video. Like I was just feeling so much of their energy, and I was going around to each of them and like looking them in their eyes and being like, what is it that you want to do in a loving way? But I was like, wow, when I look back like maybe like 2 or 3 years later, I was like really energized and amped. But they felt it, and when I left, that's what the comment was, because I was like, this is not a game. We are in here to empower you. We are in here to see you, to speak. And they all took turns speaking to each other. And that was one of the most impactful moments I had. And I traveled for it as well. So I was like crossing my fingers, like, I hope this lands right for these students, and it did. So
wow. I love it. I love it. So speaking of all of that energy that you have, let's talk about Zoom Zoom. Because Zoom, let me tell you, I saw her in action with Zoom Zoom, and yes, please hold it up so that they can capture it on the screen. And her energy with the kids love the Zoom Zoom idea. So we need to talk about Zoom Zoom, and then also the music video you did for it. Like, such a great idea. So it is both fun and deeply important. What's the message? Tell us what the message is, and what were you hoping to share with educators and young readers throughout this story? With
Zoom Zoom, in particular, like it's a reflection of the students that I've had, both currently and when I first began. The idea is to remind the community and to remind the educators that everyone is different. I know the majority of teachers are walking into their classroom with this in mind. And every day I think we can lose it from moment to moment, depending on what your class is doing, depending on how much sleep you got, depending on what you're trying to teach. And there is frustration in all of those moments. But the book kind of brings the educators back to the perspective of the student, which most of the time, I think with most of us, we're always leading from ourselves, like from an I-centered place, and that makes sense. And this book I wrote from the child's perspective. So the main character's name is Jordan, and Jordan's going through a typical day at school. Before he gets to school, he or she, Jordan, is, you know, androgynous. But before they get to school, like talking about all of the stimuli and everything that a child will be taking in as they get to school. And once they get to school, they start to zoom. Their minds are always zooming. And it's not to say that it's I wanted to speak to the idea that we all of our brains are zooming sometimes. In the morning, before we go to sleep, when we're stressed, like, If there's a lot going on, your brain is kind of always active.
Yeah.
And for some, it's 24/7. For this character, it's like 24/7. And the pivotal moment in the book is the demonstration of how quickly a student with who is neurodivergent may respond to their environment and flip on a dime without any sort of, it could be the same thing happening every day, and for that moment, they will flip and escalate from 0 to 1,000. And I think it's a reminder to educators, like, remember that every student is taking in the environment differently, and what's happening is going to be received differently. So after the student escalates and demonstrates, like, you said something simple, but the way I received it, oh no, like everything has to stop right now. And so they shut down, but the educators and the adults in the story come together, and rather than give consequences, which is quite often what ends up happening, and the students are then continually given consequences, which builds a narrative, and the students then begin to think, like, something's not right with me because I'm getting a consequence for the way that I am. And the book explains, like, this is just who I am, and there shouldn't be a consequence for that. Let's work together and accommodate and figure out how we can make this work, which is what ends up happening. And then from then on, it's an idea of the students understanding that there's nothing wrong with them and what works for you. And every time I go in and read it, which, since I just started, has been a few times, and at Storyland, the Bronx Book Haven, the idea is very strongly, like, I need you to remember that we are all so different, and that the way that you receive things is how you receive it now. It could change, it could not, but what are you how are you doing? How are you managing it so that you can accomplish whatever it is that you want to accomplish? And I always tell them, this is something adults have to remember, like, every day. I'm not feeling it today. What do I need? Coffee? Okay, cool. Let me get coffee. Or let me go to bed earlier. What strategies are you using that work so that you can accomplish or get what you want? And realize that there's nothing wrong with that. You just continue to evolve and change. So it gets them comfortable with the idea that I can be different. I might learn differently. I may break down or, build myself up, but what am I doing? What's comfortable for me? And it could be different from person to person. And it also opens up the idea that the community needs to be prepared. Because oftentimes it's like, shh, don't tell.
Everyone needs to be involved.
Mold, like assimilate, like mold, don't tell anybody. And it's like, no, the community needs to understand how to receive anybody. And this book also kind of lends itself to prepping the community and making sure that everyone is kind of mindful of the fact that we all learn differently.
That's so important. I'm so happy that it targets, like, adults and children, because both need to understand, right? So like you said, the child needs to understand there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just going, through my moments, and I will get through it. And then the adult needs to understand also, same, it's just a moment. How do you deal with that? Because even like the educators, it's difficult when you have a full class and there's 1 or 2 students who are just jumping off the walls. Like, what do you do? Do you stop the whole class? Do you address the students? How do you address them in front of the class so they don't feel bad about themselves?
Exactly.
So, I think that's so important. And even I feel like to the point where parents should have this book in their home as well. Because like you said, it's a community. So if we're doing the work in the schools and at home we're not doing the work as parents, then where do we meet? Because now the child is coming into the school already feeling away because of what they're experiencing at home. So this is so great.
I love it.
Social emotional intelligence. Social emotional intelligence right now is very huge in education. And it's not something that we think about often, that we should be thinking about at home, because it does stem from the household too at times.
Absolutely.
Because we all live stressful lives, So this is really like a gem for everyone to have. Yes. So we don't have much time left, but I want to know, what's next for AlphaKey Club? What else are you working on? Tell us more. I know you have a workbook as well.
I do have a workbook, which I released first before this. and I did like a second edition. I kind of upgraded that original workbook. The music video that is attached to Zoom Zoom,
love it.
so
Yes.
fun. I thought the song was most important, so the music video that I did is playful. It's just
Yeah.
me, but I absolutely want to incorporate students into the
Yes.
music video. So my next step is definitely to kind of like redo that music video so that the students can see themselves in other students and not just me like dancing around, which I had so much fun doing it. And also I have another book that I'm working on that talks about how, kind of a similar idea, but how human beings and all beings are resilient in a way that when they are underestimated or when they are not expected to do something, which is a lot of, oftentimes in the neurodivergent community, they will excel and they will exceed depending on their environment and depending on their community. I had a professional development where the guest educator spoke about the bumblebee and how it's impossible for the bumblebee to fly.
Right.
And he led with, nobody told the bumblebee it couldn't fly. And I was like, I have to speak on that because there are a lot of students who, we used to call them nonverbal, but now they are pre-verbal. We don't know if they will speak or when they will
Right.
speak, but that doesn't mean they will never speak.
Right.
And they will say, oh, they're never, so we stop saying they're nonverbal. We don't know. There's always a possibility
Right.
as long as they're living and as long as they're in the
Right.
environment. So I want to really focus on that concept, and I'm working on that. It should be out soon once I get everything together. And then, of course, I'm working with schools to go and read and dance with the students and talk about Zoom Zoom and really open up communities that are, people are doing this work, but I'm adding my little flair and Zoom Zoom
course,
color to
yes.
it, and just reminding everyone of the possibilities and how the community is stronger
Yes.
together.
Ah,
and being
I love
safe.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to have you back
Yes.
Okay.
with your next book.
Yes, yes, yes.
So let's close out. Just give everyone really quick in like 20 seconds a message for like the children and educators, and then let everyone know where they can follow you and find your book.
Absolutely. The message for the children and the educators is to have compassion, to always breathe before you speak or before you do, and if you make sure that you calm your body before you set your mind to anything. You are limitless, and you have the ability to work with others and accomplish as much as you can as long as you're calm and you know your strategies.
Yes.
And educators and students have
Yes.
compassion for,
Yes.
you know.
And then really quick, just let everyone know where they can follow you, because I want to make sure.
At Join AlphaKey, and I'm also on YouTube under AlphaKey Club.
Awesome. So everybody follow her at AlphaKey Club. Make sure you follow this incredible movement, and make sure you watch our episodes. Sip fearlessly. I'm Sue Fearless.
And I'm Gigi.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Yes.